Well, the man who nicknamed himself the Special One is back. Jose Mourinho is the new manager of Manchester United. He's been called a serial winner, and you cannot deny his success rate. Don't get me wrong, when I played football, I was desperate to win too. Throughout my football career at Chelsea, Blackburn, Southampton and England, I always did everything I could to win. But when I crossed the line and did something wrong, I held my hand up and tried to learn from my mistakes. I tried very hard to remember that no matter how much I wanted to win, there are also responsibilities and values that must be upheld. Mourinho may well bring medals, but if his record is anything to go by, he'll also bring his fair share of negative headlines and a siege mentality that results in a them and us mindset. Football needs to remember that long-lasting success is underpinned by a set of standards, and that's true in all walks of life. It can be done. I admire the example set by elite tennis players who, after even the most devastating defeats, managed to summon up the composure and good grace to congratulate their successful opponent. Because there's a difference between winning and winning at any cost.
I think what you're saying is really fashionable at the moment, if I may say, especially off the back of Leicester City, which seemed like the happiest group of guys around. You know, wonderful manager, taking them out for Italian food all the time, whatever was going on. However, you know, growing up in Manchester under the era of Alex Ferguson, it was very exciting that there was this really tough boss at the top of Man U. You know, that there was kind of this guy that no one could cross. And my understanding of it, and you obviously know far more better, and we can broaden it out from football, is if you want to win, you've got to be tough. You've got to be out there. I'm not sure necessarily if you're against that, but I'm trying to understand what the problem with that is. And really, what I would love to know from you is, isn't it a very all-consuming thing when you're a young guy on a football team and somebody's got to be running your life? They're not just running kind of what you do 9 to 5 in the office. If we see what footballers get up to out on the streets, you will know better than me. But, you know, isn't that actually what you need, a firm grip?
Absolutely. It's a tough profession. You've got 30, 35 players competing for 11 places on the team. So ultimately, there's huge competition. The manager has to understand the dynamic. He has to play people off against each other. He has to do all of those things. You have to be relatively ruthless yourself in your own development. Of course, all those things are vital. That's the dynamic of sport. It's the dynamic of business. But at the same time, there's a value added, I think, and a set of values that needs to be added to underpin how you go about doing that. And a manager like Sir Alex Ferguson, for all his success, for all his sort of ruthless mentality, we hear about the hairdryer treatment he gave players at half-time, some of the language he used, all of that was still in the context of a set of standards that he upheld about Manchester United.
So what's Mourinho going to do that you're so worried about?
Because I think he goes beyond, and other managers like him have done it as well.
In what way? In what way does he go beyond? Spell it out.
Because he is, for me, stepped over the line on many occasions, whether it be with the authority of the Football Association, where he's continuously pushed the lines, pushed the boundaries, been charged, not learnt from his mistakes. Also, you know, there's a live case on at the moment with the doctor at Chelsea. But the way he treated both Ava Caniero and the physio John Fern in that situation, I'm not even saying that what he did.
To win.
And I'm not saying what he did at the time. Actually, what he did at the time, I could understand. I could relate to what he did at the time. But it was the way he handled it afterwards. And what he's done on many occasions is he's actually undermined and damaged the reputation of his employer. And that, for me, is the bit...
What do you mean? He wins trophies for them. He sells shirts all around the world.
But the thing...
Manchester United's share price went up when he was linked to the club. But what do you need?
Because, for me, it's such a short-term benefit. Now, of course...
What, cups?
No, the fact...
Trophies? What did you play for
his tenure is short-term. He does 2 years, 3 years at clubs... And then it burns out. So for me, it's not a criticism of him per se.
Is he a good manager?
He's a fantastic manager.
Why? What makes him a good manager?
Because he creates the siege mentality. He creates the dynamic within the team that means that they go out and they are under such pressure to perform that they deliver. But they do that in a short term. So a lot of people, I think, can achieve that. If you've got that power, if you've got that authority, you can achieve short-term success. But as I said in my opening, real success for me is doing it with a way that encourages people to behave to a set of standards. And for me, people like that go beyond that standard and actually ultimately fail
The best
because they
bosses
can't
I've
sustain
ever had
it.
are the ones I've feared. The best bosses I've ever had, I've been scared the living daylights out of.
We need to get them on the programme.
We do.
But if you live in fear of someone,
you perform well.
but you've performed well
Yes,
all
you
the
do.
time.
Yes, I did.
And what about the ones that don't survive?
They don't hang around.
And you think that that's acceptable?
Well, I've never run a football team, but yeah, if they can't play and if it's too hard for them, clear off, go and destroy someone else's team, don't destroy mine.
Isn't there a room or a need for different styles? And I'm not going to embarrass myself by talking about football managers because it's not my forte. But if I think about business, for example, in business you have different peaks and troughs, you have different needs and requirements, and you have different leadership needs at different points. So, for example, I don't know, you might need to do a transformational programme or something, so you might have to get an external consultant in that's completely unemotionally attached to the workforce, that needs to come in and have a certain style to push and drive change forward. Then you need to get rid of that person, and then you need to get someone that then is going to mould and develop what's being created as the business. And if I think about business leaders and styles, you would start with someone like a Henry Ford, who was very kind of dictatorial. You sit there, you do it like this. A lot of companies now are moving towards cultures called like freedom and responsibility, where they've stripped back any kind of hierarchy and structure, and they basically say to their employees, we hire you, you've got to be the best, you have the freedom, but with it comes responsibility to achieve, and if you don't, we're going to let you go. So for me, there's a room of all
success in that
styles.
model, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
That wouldn't work in football, would it?
No, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work everywhere.
You've got a load of lads whose brains are in their boots. They need a damn good kicking every now and again.
The brains might be elsewhere.
Well, the brains are there as well. Yeah, if you read the Sunday papers, yeah.
The thing is, it's the question of collaboration, isn't it? It's whether or not nowadays, with modern football as an example, and other areas of business, you've got people that have assumed more power. So individual football players have power now, and whether that's right or wrong, that's another discussion.
Right.
But ultimately, it's down to a manager to make sure he gets the best out of the team. But if they reject him, as has happened with Jose Mourinho at every club that he's been at, he then can't sustain it.
Right, hang on. Can we just, Saint Graeme? Can we just have a little look back at some of your career highlights and lowlights? This is Mr. Le Saux in action.
Le Saux. Вот и драка. Посмотрите. До этого вообще Le Saux, игрок сборной команды Англии, подрался с игроком сборной команды Норвегии Бергом. Ну, арбитр может удалить и того, и другого. Ну, надо же...
Now, I don't want to be provocative, but what was the word you were saying there?
I was quite offensive.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
That's what got you playing for England. That's what got you doing the great job you did.
Listen, and I would love to. I would love to have played under Mourinho. I really would have, because I would have won stuff with him, and he creates a loyalty with those that buy into that. But a lot of people can't survive that. It doesn't make them bad football players. Other football players have left his sort of leadership, gone somewhere else and been very, very successful.
Why
so
did
as
they
Michelle
leave it?
says, because they couldn't maybe handle the situation, or he rejected them.
There's a red mist. When you clattered into that bloke, it's literally a red mist comes in.
Absolutely.
Because you know you're doing wrong. You know you risk being sent off.
Well, the thing is, you don't at the time, because it's such a... You're so in the moment.
Is that right?
And it's only afterwards. But again, the point I'm making is, we all make mistakes. Crikey, I've made a load. You've shown a couple there.
Yeah, I tried to get more.
Yeah, but there are plenty more. But also, I think it's so important that if you're in a position of power, significance, whether it's in business, whether it's in sport, that once you've made the mistake, you hold your hand up and you say, do you know what, I was wrong. So I immediately, after I had that altercation with David Batty, my own teammate, I mean, how embarrassing is that? Because that was ultimately the demise of a very good team, and we were all suffering at that point. David and I took it out on each other, but ultimately I apologised for that. I was embarrassed for myself, the club. I apologised to him, and there were reasons why that happened. It built up, but it doesn't excuse what happened. And I think that's part of my point, is that with sport, I'm passionate about my sport, but I expect people to uphold certain standards within the sport, because the sport is bigger than the individual in my mind.
Good point.
Passionate. Oh, yeah.
Provocative.
Yes.
There you go,
Heard
straight
those words.
talking.
Fearless.
Well, I'm sure a lot of you will miss Louis van Gaal. Here's our parting gift to you.
Louis. Goodbye. I have to go. I'm Louis. Oh, no. I have been second, so it's a happy end.
Okay. So
You are twisting my words. I don't want to speak. Now, the fans are shouting every week. Louis, Louis. You use my words in your context. I let the girl.
Every word what I say is interpreted the wrong way.
Louis, Louis. You think you are smarter than I, but it is not like that.
I have been sacked.
They sacked me. Sacked me.
Nights and days, we sail the sea. We think of girl constantly on the ship. I dream she there.
He looks
So,
fascinating.
who would like to work under Louis van Gaal?
Wow, I want to learn more about him. That was awesome. I love that.
You're going to miss him, aren't you, Graeme?
I'm definitely going to miss him.
Oh, it's so diplomatic.
I think he's got his legs and fingers crossed there. by
I
the
didn't
looks of
enjoy
it.
his style of football. I think that's how I would sum up his
Very
tenure
diplomatic.
at
I'm
Old
going to
Trafford.
blow the whistle on this debate. There's no extra time, Graeme. Thank you.